Welcome to this lecture on care for place. I want to start out by just saying that we do not primarily engage life with reason through our thinking, but with our feelings, our emotions. We primarily engage life with our emotion of caring. Caring is our primordial, and by primordial I mean basic or fundamental, but caring is our primordial orientation to life. We care about ourselves, we care about others, we care about community, we care about the world, right? Those sort of things. And this caring, as we've been talking about the entire semester, this caring can be informed by either a guarded self-consciousness or a graceful presence. So, what informs your caring? Do you care about things in a way that produces self-doubt and a sense of inadequacy and dissatisfaction? Or have you been able, during the course of this term, to cultivate graceful presence so that you can care in a way that's confident and resilient and cheerful and loving, right? So, and how we're present to life, the care that we bring to our life will decide the world that we live in, the world that we inhabit. It's been said that a discouraged person lives in a discouraging world. An anxious person lives in an anxious world, whereas, a cheerful person lives in a cheerful world, or a joyful person lives in a joyful world. So, we've been talking, again, all semester long about cultivating graceful presence. We've been using the character exercises to kind of help cultivate that. We've talked a lot about the 7 practices of graceful presence, and we've been unpacking now the way we can bring graceful presence to the various relationships, the 6 relationships that make us who we are, right? Our relationship to self and to others and to community and to world and to place, which we'll talk about today, and then time next time. In each of these relationships, of course, we want to cultivate a graceful presence to each of these. So today we're talking about care for place. And the issue is this. The issue in care for place is quite simple and obvious, though often overlooked. And it's that we have a body. We have a body and we need a place to put it. We have feet and we need to stand somewhere, right? We need a place to put our feet, so to speak. The body has been ignored by most philosophers since Plato. The body was seen as something to be escaped, right? To be gotten rid of. It was a problem. It was the mind that philosophers focused on. And the mind was not, they didn't think physical, right? The mind doesn't have feet. You don't have to put the mind anywhere. But there is this deep philosophical problem that we're going to talk briefly about today, and that is finding a place to stand on your feet, or finding a place where you can be at home in your body. So again, this is caring for place. I like this quote. I'm not sure who said it, but humans need a firm dwelling place if they are not to be dragged along helplessly by the stream of time. So we can say then that there is a basic fundamental human activity that we might call dwelling. We dwell. Dwelling is creating a place to put our bodies, right? Dwelling is creating a place where we feel at home, a place where we feel like we belong. Place, as you can see, is simply that, is where you live in that intersection of man-made or human-built and natural environments. Being at home then is belonging, or having a home, a place where we feel we belong, that gives us both a sanctuary, a place of protection, but also a center, right? The center of one's life, from where we can go out and engage the world and come back to for rest. So the center where we can recharge ourselves, our embodied life. A basic fear that we all have is the fear of being homeless, not just physically homeless without a shelter, without a place to live, but in care for place, we're talking about existential homelessness, this fear that you don't belong in the places where you live. You have no place, really, that could be considered a sanctuary or a center, right? So you have no place to really rest your embodied self. So in care for place, we have to work out a relationship to place where we feel like we do belong, we are at home. To care for place is learning how to dwell in the places where you live, feeling that you belong there, that you're connected to those places. So, here's something to ask yourself. Where do you call home, right? Think about this for a moment. Where do you call home, and why do you call that place home? What characterizes that place you call home? Could you cultivate those characteristics wherever you live? So maybe some of you probably live at home with your parents still, or with your spouse. Others live in apartments. But if you think about home, where is that and why, right? And when I think about what characterizes the place that I feel like I belong, that I call home, there are things I imagine that what that characterizes that place are, it's filled with books and music and artwork and family, not just real family, but pictures of family. The place that I call home is characterized by living plants, lots of indoor plants, right? Comfortable places to sit, look out the window and just think, meditate. There's smells, the smells of cooking, of bread, of cookies, of that sort of a thing. These are some of the things that characterize the place that I would call home. In any case, here's an assignment for you right now. Well, maybe after this lecture, right? I want you to walk around where you live, right? Just go to the place where you live today, some point, and walk around it, inside and outside. Get a sense of that place. Do you feel like you belong there? Do you have a sense of where you live, that you're at home, right? You're being at home. Because all of us, must come to feel in the places that we live that they're meaningful to us, that we feel that we are safe, secure, respected, and free to live a life of human flourishing. Caring for place then is a dwelling that sustains a meaningful life over time, a place where you can recreate your sense of being safe, secure, respected, and free. And this dwelling, really, there are three characteristics, three functions of dwelling that we need to talk about. Identity, orientation, and fusion. So by identity, this function of dwelling simply means that your place is an expression of who you are and who you want to be. And this might include historical and cultural references. So I have a friend who is proud of and identifies with his Scottish ancestry. So you see in his home many relics or decorations that express that Scottish ancestry that he sees as a part of his own identity. My wife has ancestors who were part of the Mormon pioneers. So you'll find in our home pictures of some of those Mormon pioneers, some of those ancestors, as well as symbols of that historical identity. Orientation is simply that your place where you live gives you a sense of possibilities, where you can go out and engage the world and then return, right? And be safe. Your home then orients you in your engagement with the world. Here's a silly example of how homes orient us in a way. When I was young and my family moved to Brigham City from Salt Lake City, I was surprised to discover that nobody used their front doors. The front door was for guests and visitors only, but family and friends always used the side door. I quickly, picked up this new orientation of always going in the side door when I went home or visited my friends. Even today, I have the habit, when visiting friends, of walking up to their side door, which, by the way, is not the accepted custom in Orem, so I often get funny looks and awkward moments. Another example is in our homes, we have different rooms for different functions. Again, the way how our home orients us. So there are different activities in different rooms. So we have the formal living room, where it was hardly ever used, right? You have the family room, the dining room, the kitchen, the den or computer room, the bedroom, all all connote different functions of dwelling that orient us in life. The third function, characteristic of dwelling, is fusion. In architecture, this is sometimes called organic architecture, but it's this notion that dwelling requires a harmonious blending of built environment and natural environment. This could be called the genus loci, or spirit of place. It's often violated today, where homes are valued more for their property value and to feed the owner's ego than for meaningful dwelling. So, the trend is to build unnecessarily large homes that don't fit into the natural place or the pre-existing human places. Often the larger the house, the more existential alienation and homelessness lies within. Today it seems like many builders neglect building homes in a way that honors the natural environment or pre-existing human environment. And many homebuyers don't realize what they're missing by going for size and ostentation over real dwelling. Now, to see what I mean by fusion, perhaps the best and most famous example is Falling Water in western Pennsylvania. It's a home designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. You see a picture of it on the slide here. Fantastic place. It's a great example of organic architecture fusion in respecting the natural environment. The home itself is built over the waterfall on the property. All the materials to construct the home were locally sourced. It's a great example of how a home fits a natural place and respects the spirit of the place. And I just had to show that because it's one of my favorite examples of Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. Now, to get to the practice of dwelling, right, to make sure that these three things, identity, orientation, and fusion, are part of the place where you live, I want to turn briefly to Native American philosophy and worldview and their intuitive sense of caring for place. The Native Americans practiced dwelling and care for place for millennium until they were invaded and disrupted by European settlers, colonizers. The Native Americans lived in harmony with the natural places and cultivated a real connection to place. And we'll briefly examine the 5 elements of this Native American philosophy of place. But behind it all was a sense of the sacred in the ordinary. Here's a great quote, from Chief Seattle, who said, "Every part of the earth is sacred to my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove, the very dust upon which you now stand responds more lovingly to our footsteps and to yours, because it is rich with the blood of our ancestors." If you think about, that's a great quote. If you think about the value, right, of seeing the sacred in the ordinary, you can imagine, right, how your relationship to your human and natural environments would change if you saw them infused with sacredness. Meaning that, everything and every activity not only had its own common sense meaning, but also a quality that, if rightly experienced, discloses to you the infinite joy and value of existence. Some of the benefits of seeing the sacred in the ordinary, as you can see on this slide, it helps us feel at home in the world by giving us a connection to place, a bond where we live. It serves as an antidote to cynicism and apathy that seem to characterize so much of our modern life, which dismisses people and things as insignificant and unimportant. And then it helps us see the goodness, the beauty, and the value of simple and ordinary things, activities, and people in the places where we live. So let's turn briefly now to those 5 characteristics of the Native American philosophy of place as we work towards the key practice in care for place that can cultivate for us a sense of real dwelling, of being at home in the places where we live. The first aspect is this notion of relatedness of all things. For the Native American, reality is a rich tapestry that unites and connects all things with one another, lending the sacred quality to each place and every moment. Everything in the human and natural environment is worthy of deep respect and careful of devotion. Everything is connected. You see that first quote from Chief Seattle: "Humankind is not woven the way of life." That should be the web of life, sorry. "We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. Continue to contaminate your own bed, and you will one night suffocate in your own waste." Right? We as humans are embedded in the world, and if we destroy it, we destroy ourselves. decree prophecy when all the trees have been cut down, when all the animals have been hunted, when all the waters are polluted, when all the air is unsafe to breathe. Only then will you discover you cannot eat money, right? We shouldn't sacrifice the world for money, but we should use money to preserve the world. Again, Chief Seattle, all things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the children of the earth. So, again, the sense of connectedness points symbolically to the sacred quality of each ordinary activity. I mean, just to come to see, showering in the morning or doing the dishes as sacred activity, as meaningful. We sometimes complain that we don't have enough time to do meaningful things. We're too busy with required tasks and chores. So the trick, in a sense, is coming to see these required tasks that we have to do as sacred, as having some meaningful dimension to them. Well, the second quality of the Native American philosophy of place is circularity. This notion that life moves in circles, right? Day becomes night, becomes day, becomes night. Again, circular. Birth becomes death, and then rebirth. Or the seasons, right? Spring becomes summer, becomes fall, becomes winter, becomes spring. So again, cyclical, circular. To where you are is more important than where you're going. In the West, we have a linear conception of time. And that linear conception of time has us always focusing on where we're going, on the future. So we oftentimes neglect the places where we are. But a circular sense of life and time, we're always returning to where we started from. So you have a greater respect and reverence for the places and the times where you currently are. Third, you see time differently with the circularity. You're not as hurried. You're not governed by clock time. People and relationships are more important than tasks. And there's this idea of conversation moves in a circle. So a more respectful way to dialogue, to talk with one another. You don't shout across empty space, but you're in a circle. It gives a different sense of attitude towards the group. The next sense of the Native American philosophy of place is an expansive sense of person. A person is someone who is capable of contributing to life and so deserves care. Now, in Native American philosophy of place, personhood belongs to animals and parts of nature that are infused with some sort of spirit or divine presence. So you have this great quote from Chief Luther Standing Bear. The animals had rights, the right of man's protections, the right to live, the right to multiply, the right to freedom, and the right to man's indebtedness. And in recognition of these rights, the Lakota never enslaved an animal and spared all life that was not needed for food and clothing. This concept of life and its relations was humanizing. It gave to the Lakota an abiding love. It filled his being with joy and mystery of living. It gave him reverence for all life. It made a place for all things in the scheme of existence with equal importance to all. The next quality is this notion of stewardship, not ownership mentality, right? It was our belief that the love of possessions is a weakness to be overcome. Its appeal is to the material part, and if allowed its way, it will in time disturb one's spiritual balance. Therefore, children must early on learn the beauty of generosity. They are taught to give what they prize most, that they may taste the happiness of giving, right? So in this philosophy of place, the focus shifts from right to control to responsibility to share. Status comes from being generous. So you develop your talents and natural gifts not in order to stand apart and be applauded, but in order to contribute more to one's community. The 7 generations test of decision-making. I've been told that in the Iroquois nation of Indian tribes, that whenever a decision has to be made affecting the tribe, they will always ask themselves in their council, what will be the effect of this decision on the next 7 generations of life? And only if the effect can be positive will they proceed. So it's a wonderful sense of one's stewardship, right, for the world and future generations. Personal excellence value, not personal ambition. Again, one wants to become one's best possible self, but the goal is not to achieve status over others, but to contribute more to one's group, to one's tribe. And then finally, and this is the one that we want to focus on, ritual, right? Ritual is meaning-giving connection to place. So ritual is a deliberate action or practice performed in a set sequence that can improve our emotional states by reducing anxiety and or increasing confidence. Rituals can give us a sense of both identity and orientation in the world. So this is the key practice in Care for Place. It's how we can create a sense of belonging and being at home so real dwelling can take place. Rituals help us develop a connection and relationship to place. So here's an activity I want you to try, right? So this could be called an anchoring ritual. It allows you to hopefully come to feel a greater sense of belonging in the place where you live. And an effective ritual should engage all of your senses. It involves the heart, mind, and body. So you can do this while I'm talking about it, or perhaps take a few minutes after this lecture is over. But think of a place where you want to cultivate a greater sense of belonging. Maybe it's where you live now and you don't feel like you are at home there. Then think of some ritual or rituals that will help you feel more connected to that place, that make you feel, safer, more secure, more respected. And the third part is think of some ritual that will give you a greater sense of possibilities for you in that place, a sense of meaningful freedom. Now, here are some examples that students have shared with me of rituals, things which you probably already do and haven't thought of them as rituals, but these are things that you can do in the place where you currently live that can cultivate that sense of belonging, of being at home there. Shared meals, right? We invite neighbors over is a great way to feel connected. Holiday traditions. Decorating the home for those different holidays is a way of feeling like you belong. Cleaning sounds odd, but cleaning your place is a ritual. Cleaning, whether it's vacuuming or dusting or making your bed or straightening things, it can be ritualized in a way that gives you a sense of belonging. Again, what's key is that you do these things intentionally, that you perform them with the intention of becoming better connected to your place, that you do these things not just as sort of the commonplace, common sense activity, but you do them with that more profound intention to cultivate a sense of sacredness in the activity that you're doing. Decorate your place, decorate in a way that gives you a sense of connectedness. Like I mentioned, my friend who decorates his home with Scottish relics, or my wife with, pioneer relics. So let your place kind of express your identity through your decorations. Cooking can be a way of feeling at home, right? Especially if you have a favorite recipe that your mom used to make for you, and now you've moved out to another apartment or another place and you don't feel like you belong there, but maybe calling your mom and getting the recipe and then making that dish there in your new place can give you a sense of belonging. Just walking the neighborhood is a great ritual, right? Walk around, get to know, maybe not right now with the social distancing, but walk around, get to know your neighbors, right? Designate places of belonging. I know that some of you live in small apartments where you really can't have all these different spaces, but you can perhaps designate a particular corner in your apartment as a dwelling place for you, as a place where you belong, and decorate that corner with things which give you a sense of belonging. Create a new holiday, right? Festivus, what was that from Seinfeld? I have friends who, whenever they move to a new place, will have a blessing on the home, a prayer. Feng shui, right? You can do something like that. Block neighborhoods, parties, or socials are another way of creating a sense of belonging. But again, the key thing is do a ritual, do some deliberate activity or practice that allows you to cultivate a sense of identity and orientation in the place where you live. Again, it's important that you do it intentionally with this thought, right? That you're doing this in order to feel better connected to your place. You're doing it to cultivate a sense of that sacredness in the ordinary. The benefits of rituals, right? They confer a sense of unity in a group. So your family can do a ritual together that perhaps helps, or your roommates. So if you do a ritual to feel at home in your apartment, inviting your roommates to help you is also good. It motivates action and builds confidence. Rituals confer a sense of control. Rituals improve experience by enhancing pleasant experiences and diminishing unpleasant ones. Rituals can help in decision making. Rituals confer a sense of belonging to the place where you live. So rituals have real benefits. So you might want to consider performing some rituals in the places where you live to cultivate that sense of belonging. Finally, I want to kind of end with this story from an indigenous tradition. Might not have any direct relevance to Care for Place, but it's a cool story nonetheless. An old Cherokee is teaching his grandson about life. "A fight is going on inside me," he said to the boy. "It is a terrible fight, and it is between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego." He continued, "The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too." The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" The old Cherokee simply replied, "The one you feed." Cool. I just realized that I did not give you an access code for the quiz, so I'm going to pull that up here real fast. Oops. Templates, blank document. The access code for this new quiz will be 9999. Okay, thank you again very much for joining me for this experience and discussion of Care for Place. Hope you found some benefit in it, and we will talk to you again soon about Care for Time. Bye.